Good evening, everyone. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee here, 6 o'clock Eastern Time on this September the 17th, 2018. As the days just march along, and we're still dealing with Florence and the rains that it has produced, which continue to be substantial. Today, it was the turn of western parts of Virginia and points southward into western North Carolina, and then also extending into parts of eastern West Virginia. Now we're seeing this area starting to shift northward, but the rainfall amounts still pale by what a comparison to what fell in eastern North Carolina on the order of 30 plus inches. Just try and bear in mind, if you're in the, just as an example, if you're in the New York, New Jersey, Long Island, Hudson Valley area, Connecticut, eastern PA, the average rainfall is the average rainfall for most months is on the order of 3 to 4 inches. So just do the math. You're talking about 6 to 7 months worth of rain in 4 days. That is a phenomenal amount of water when you think about it. All the rain in 7 months squeezed into 4 days nonstop. That is incredible. And of course, we are going to continue to see a lot of the rivers rise in North Carolina and South Carolina, not cresting until maybe late this week or this coming weekend. So there will be additional flooding. Those of you who may still be awake, if you're watching from Ireland and England, Helene, the remnant low from Helene played its way through. It was a more than manageable gale center. We didn't really think that it was going to be too big a deal. The feature just stayed identifiable on the weather models right up through its passage, and then got pretty much absorbed by the low in the North Atlantic. But you still have another gale center that follows. And I know your government offices there, UK Met and Met Iran, have been talking about another low coming for the middle of next week. We do have Veronica Reese, Ireland, in the house. Thank you for being here. I think you could pretty well, you posted up on the conversation earlier before we went on that it was an entirely manageable event. I believe you did, or was it Sally Seahorse that put it up? Or maybe both of you did. But definitely a manageable system for you. We're going to look, by the way, at what's coming down the road. Hi, back to everybody who has said hello. I want to get started here with everything. Garo Vestas, you'll be the last one before I get started. Newark Airport departing at 7:30. Well, you did have a severe thunderstorm that moved through Somerset County, southwest of Newark, back about an hour or so ago. This is the radar as of 6:03. That is now moved on to the north and east. We're kind of getting this sort of fringe band of the easternmost, I shouldn't say a fringe band, but the easternmost band of the rains from Florence. And the character of this has changed today to some degree. We'll explain that. Rosalind DeCanio, hi, back. And Sean, you're going to be handicapping the races for Wednesday's Big Pick 6 carryover at Belmont. I will look at it. Yes, they will. More than likely, they will be off the turf, so with the rain from tomorrow. Okay, this is the Fort Dix radar, and there's some heavier downpours at the moment moving through northeastern Pennsylvania and moving up into the Hudson Valley. The system here, when we look at it on the satellite, you'll notice that it is really spread out in terms of the coverage of the cloud cover. You still have an evident circulation from this. The WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, they're the folks that are handling it at this time. And I'll just give you their 5 o'clock position. They just went to, I believe, post-tropical now. Post-tropical cyclone at 39 north, 81.3 west, which is about 85 miles west-southwest of Morgantown, West Virginia, or about 200 miles west-southwest of Hagerstown, Maryland. This primarily went along or just west of the Appalachians, which was good for my area because that reduces the heavy rains and sort of shifts it to the north and west. It doesn't mean that we won't be getting some heavy rains out of this on tonight and on Tuesday. And in fact, today, we did actually see some severe weather with tornado issues going on. I think I'll bring up the Storm Prediction Center's map here before I bring up the full radar. We still have a tornado watch up for northeastern Virginia into parts of southeastern Maryland, and you can see it there in the small reddish box. That is where the Storm Prediction Center has indicated a slight risk of severe, and they're actually I saw, it was 2 tornado warnings that I did see south of the Washington, D.C. area earlier, and we have a marginal risk on up into parts of southern Minnesota. And that is with the cold front that is approaching, that is combining with all of this as it moves out to the east. I'm just giving off camera, I'm just giving a quick check here with respect to the watches that are up. I just wanted to make sure that there weren't any current tornado watches up, and I don't see anything. Warnings up, and I do not see that. Here's how, this is from the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, from the Weather Service office there, the forecast office, which of course you can access by going to weather.gov. This is the Baltimore, Washington office, so the yellow areas are all under a tornado watch as of 6 o'clock. Washington, D.C. just sits right on the boundary of that tornado watch, by the way. And the green is the flash, flood, and flood watches that are up. And those are going to continue overnight. I'm going to leave this window open here. Hang on one second. I'll just bring up the whole, we'll go to weather.gov. These are all websites, by the way, that you should always keep handy. Typed a little bit too fast. There we go. So there's your flood watch at the moment, covering still flood watches up for western Virginia into some counties in northwestern North Carolina. The lighter green are flood advisories and those are all flood warnings, for river flooding that's going on. There's not a whole lot of rain falling radar-wise this evening that far south. There's some cells on the radar, but the flood watch extends up, except for extreme western Pennsylvania and extreme eastern Pennsylvania. The rest of the state is under it. Most of the state of Maryland, New York State, across parts of southern New York, on eastward, Hudson Valley, basically north of Route 84 up to about a little bit north of I-90, and across Massachusetts and on up into northern Connecticut. And these flood watches are going to continue through tomorrow. I think there's going to be a steadier rain and heavy downpours as you go north of the coast, and then it gets more convective as you head down in my neck of the woods. We're going to see some rounds of downpours and probably some thunderstorms, but there will be some breaks in between. Now here's the radar, the regional radar, and there's a squall line across eastern Virginia that has developed and is moving eastward. Please remember, you're watching this, these are dated, this is at 6:08 Eastern time, so if you're watching this on a replay later on, be sure to check your local National Weather Service office for the latest radars, watches, and warnings that might be up at your area, and of course you can access that by going to weather.gov. The rain in northern Pennsylvania and moving into southern New York on the radar, there's much more solid coverage. It's more overrunning in nature, really. There's going to be a zone of tropical air that's going to lie, a warm sector, basically, from the Hudson Valley down to New Jersey and Long Island, the southern areas of the Hudson Valley, New Jersey, Long Island, eastern Pennsylvania, down to Delaware and Maryland. And I think that tomorrow there is the risk that as the surface circulation, which is still back to the west, you see the spinning on the radar, it's practically in northeastern Kentucky. I really kind of wish the WPC has been picking these points as reference points, which is fine, but it might not be a bad idea to pick something that's closer to where the circulation center is, because at least we know they make reference to points in West Virginia and in Maryland with Hagerstown. And I forgot what the other point was that the geographic point that they used. But earlier today they picked their points 250 miles away from Charlottesville and 250 miles away from some other point. And I think it's a little more useful if you can get something a whole lot closer. But all of this spinning to the east, at least except for some stray thunderstorms in the middle part of the state of North Carolina and a little bit of activity going on in the west. The activity today has calmed down considerably, and that's good. That at least does not add any additional rain. The flood watches are still up for those areas inland in North Carolina and Virginia because of the fact that you do have to wait for this rotation to move on through, and there are some bands of showers to the west, so there's a likelihood that there will be some other downpours in the overnight hours until that low center just gets out of the way. But the process of getting rid of all of this is underway, and that is a good thing. Now, here we have the satellite. I've chosen this off of Tropical Tidbits because I like the view that it gives, and you've got the remnant low of Florence and the coastline, and then you also can see there's disturbed weather that's northeast of Puerto Rico. There's an upper low that's sitting out there. We're not really overly concerned with this. Models have been spinning up some weak circulations and moving them westward from time to time in the last couple of days. I haven't really seen anything that constitutes further worry at this stage. I think right now the focus is to just get Florence out of the way. And the clouds have now moved up into New England and upstate New York. You could pick out the higher cloud tops, by the way, from the area. This is picture's a little delayed, but that's that squall line across Virginia and into central North Carolina. So it's out of this that the Storm Prediction Center has its tornado watch up and the tornado warnings that we have already seen. At this point, where am I going to go? Hold on one second. I'm just going to go full screen because I do want to check something off camera. And, okay. I was wondering to see if there was going to be any kind of surprised Skyping going on, but it doesn't appear to be the case, so that's a good thing. All right, so where is this all headed going forward? Let's at this point jump over to the weather models, maps, and that satellite, by the way, courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com, your go-to website, I believe it should be, for weather maps and weather models. Great site, great work by Levi Cowan. First of all, for all you snow lovers, yes, that is snow in southeastern Canada, and the weather pattern is actually pretty interesting. I'm going to show you a little bit going forward, a little bit about that in a couple of minutes. But here's our system, the remnants of Florence, kind of, just sort of move on through. There's an identifiable low that's near Boston by tomorrow afternoon. The track here, again, brings this sort of narrow band of heavy rain through northern Pennsylvania and upstate New York. And let me bring that full screen. You can see it better here. Caught my mistake early this time. I got the full U.S. view, so folks, I know I've got some people watching from the Pacific Northwest, so I want to accommodate them. And we do have, basically quiet weather going on there. But Florence will move through. There will be some rough weather in spots tomorrow to get through across parts of the Northeast and down to the northern mid-Atlantic. Then it moves offshore. The front may get slightly hung up for a brief time. I don't think it's going to be, it's not going to make much of a difference except for the possibility of some clouds. And the next 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday, look pretty nice with high pressure building down from eastern Canada and the Canadian Maritimes. That, by the way, still is some snow that you see up northern in Labrador. So actually the air across Canada is quite cold going forward in the short and long range. The next low runs to the Great Lakes. This one comes out of the Rockies, and it's going to have its own round of severe weather to deal with late this week across parts of the upper Midwest and in through the central and even parts of the southern plains. And then that front moves through the east Friday night, and another high builds in with some cool, dry air for the first weekend of autumn. And that is as far as we go on this run of the GFS. But I want to show you, I'll go back one run. And at least from the standpoint of the upper air pattern that we're looking at in the next couple of weeks. Kind of interesting, I think, the way things are evolving. So I'm going to roll it back to the very beginning so you can see the change here, starting from today. This this upper low that's in eastern Kentucky reflects Florence, but you've got a pretty fast flow. The trough is just off the west coast. You've got a little vortex going to work there up in northern Canada, and that starts to drop southeastward. The ridge flattens a bit in the east as the remnant low of Florence goes by, but most of the troughing is out in the west, so there's going to be some semblance of ridging in the east. But notice it's very tight. It's not flying all the way up into eastern Canada. It kind of stays on the flat side, south of 35 degrees north, because it's fighting what appears to be a very strong Canadian jet that's going to be in charge through the weekend and through much of the long range. So that is at least going to put us close to cooler air masses from Canada that are going to want to come down at least into the northeast and possibly even into the mid-Atlantic states if the ridge flattens out enough. The other thing I want to look at, by the way, is the fact that this persistent flat ridge here across the Gulf states, it may eventually create conditions of lower than normal pressures across the southern Gulf and in the Caribbean late in the long range period. And you can start to see this happening as the ridge begins to push away more toward the east coast and offshore. But you can follow the flow from Canada here, so there is movement again in the atmosphere where we're going to be getting some air masses coming down. And I think that basically means cold fronts running through every couple of days. It is a fairly active looking pattern going forward from that standpoint in Canada. And the outcome of all of this, by the way, is colder than average temperatures through much of this period. I'll start from the beginning. If you watch all the dark blue, that's all below average 2-meter temperatures going forward. I mean, here we are. This is at the end of this week. So much of Canada is going to be below normal in temperatures through the first week of the long range and also through the second week of the long range. It's only late in the period where you start to see some changes there and a bit of a break. But it's interesting to see that at this point, because we are at the very beginning, by the way, of what I would call the snow cover growth season. It's a little early, but we've already seen some areas, and this is the 10-day snowfall. I mean, don't take this literally in terms of the numbers, but the fact that we're going to see colder than average temperatures in Canada over the next couple of weeks likely means an early snowfall buildup in some areas. This is total snowfall, by the way. It's not what is we don't know how much of this is actually going to remain on the ground to build snow cover, but snow cover build in Canada and across North America, of course, one of many pieces of the equation of the problem that we look at in trying to figure out what kind of winter we're going to have. We're just very early in the stage of watching this. By the way, for those of you who, just to kind of anticipate your question, I've been trying to find the snow cover maps for North America and to look at Eurasia just to see what's going on. I'm not expecting to see too much, but there's something wrong with the NOAA website that handles all that. It's been down for I think months, and the pictures aren't loading. So I guess there's been very little interest in looking at it, so no one maybe even noticed that the thing is down. I don't know. Or maybe they're waiting for some part or for some software or whatever it is. But hopefully they will fix it before too long because, well, the audience demands it. All right, so let's go overseas. Let's see what's happening across the Atlantic, because the tropics, of course, still in play. And this, by the way, is a really strong storm that the GFS earlier today was telegraphing up for south of Greenland. But I'll start it from the beginning. Of course, we had Helene, the remnant low, which wound up really not be causing too much trouble as it moved on through. Then Joyce, which is the area that is way out east in the Atlantic. It's actually close to, it's kind of halfway between the Cabo Verde Islands and the Azores, and it's almost back inside 30 degrees west. That's just basically going to disappear and go away. But there is a system, and you can kind of follow it along, that moves off the Canadian maritime provinces. For those of you watching in Ireland and England and Scotland, right in here on Tuesday, centered at noontime Tuesday at about 49.5 and 33. There's a tight little gale center that develops and comes into Ireland on Wednesday. This is at 6 a.m. Wednesday. It looks a little less developed than it did a couple of days ago. I mean, it still has a solid system coming in, but it just seems like it's a little bit less. And there's a low up to the north of it that looks like it'll just eventually merge with it, and that moves away to the northeast. But it's still going to give a little bit of a punch here to the west coast of Ireland come Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, and then later on during the day Wednesday across, actually even during the early morning hours. It's moving so fast between 6 a.m. and noon for Scotland, it looks like, as it moves up. I'm going to show you on the tighter map. But meanwhile, in the tropics, just a couple of notes. The front that's coming through here Tuesday night, a wave develops on it, and you can see it here off the New Jersey coast. That wave drops southeastward and kind of mills around. I don't know whether this is going to become tropical or not, and if it does, it may not make a difference because that gets kicked away eventually to the northeast. But that becomes a major storm out in the Atlantic, south of Greenland, if it's right. I don't know how much of a tropical nature we're talking about here, but it certainly looks like the GFS wants to make this into a tropical storm or a hurricane out in the Atlantic by the end of the week. Sitting out there, and then this is sort of the point where is the upper air favorable. We're all talking in theory here, so please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm just kind of illustrating. The issue is that northern Canadian jet, does it reach far enough south where it picks it up and lifts it to the northeast? There are several short waves. If you watch the flow in Canada, the first one kind of misses it. The second one picks it up and kicks it out and lifts it up, and it becomes this huge Atlantic storm up south of Greenland and northeast of the maritime provinces. But I just want to at least put it on the table that we saw something similar in the long range with Florence, and those troughs wound up missing. I mean, the upper air is a bit different. You know, you have ridges on both sides of this, and Florence and this system is sort of split in the middle. So it would kind of imply to me that even though that is pretty much what Florence went through, but Florence completely avoided that weakness, and it was never really an issue. We've got the same setup this time around, only this time around there seems to be enough in Canada to come down and lift it up to the northeast. At least it did on the prior run. And let's remember too that the GFS has been notoriously overdone with these things, with these troughs that have been coming out of Canada. I just switched over to the 18Z, the new GFS run, just to see if there's any kind, what kind of consistency we're seeing. And, we still have, there's that system, how it drops off. We're looking at this from the perspective of 18,000 feet, and then it gets picked up. Although I bet you this time around it doesn't have this monstrous North Atlantic storm. And in fact, I can switch over and we'll take a look. And then we're going to go look at Europe. No. See the difference in this run? It doesn't really do very much with it. It does spin up a low out and just kind of moves it out to the northeast, leaves a piece of it behind, and then something else forms out of that. I'm not gonna spend too much energy on this with regards to what may or may not happen with it going forward. So let's come back to our friends in Europe to see what's happening, and let me make sure I got the precip with the snow on it, because that's always important. Okay, so there's the second gale center. So this was earlier today. The remnant low of Helene goes goodbye. Here's that second gale center, very, very tightly wound, but again, not as impressive as it was on the models a couple of days ago. But it still looks like you'll get a fairly strong punch of wind and rain, and then that moves out. Then we've got another storm on Thursday. Another low pressure center comes in from the southwest and moves into Ireland and England, with some heavy rains being indicated over parts of England there as the low intensifies as it moves into the North Sea. Looks pretty windy there on Thursday across England and Ireland from the northwest. And then here comes the next one on Saturday. So it looks like you're in a bit of a bowling alley here for you guys, with the storm after storm coming up out of the North Atlantic. I was just looking at the fact that it's the middle of September. This kind of stuff is starting to happen a bit early in the game. That's a pretty hefty storm out in 5 days that comes in. This is for next weekend. A fairly intense low that moves north of Ireland into Scotland and into the North Sea. That's pretty stormy here next weekend, if that's right. And then on its way up as a very deep low into northwestern Europe, and then eventually just kind of plays itself out as it heads into Eastern Europe and beyond. Starting to see some patches of snow showing up for you guys too in the long range, and we can put that up. All right, that's 24-hour precip. I'm sorry. So let's go just to show you. We'll put the snowfall up. And yeah, I mean, this is like really early in the game, obviously. I want to come back to the Northeast just really fast. The GFS to me has kind of handled the rain today a lot better than some of the short range models. So I'm going to lean on the GFS with respect to the rainfall forecast for the remnants of Florence. Where you see that stripe of 2 to 4, 2 to 5 inch rains, it's more like 2 to 4 from the colors there that run from northwestern Pennsylvania and on up through New York State and into southern Vermont and New Hampshire. The surface low is going to track right along the southern boundary of that, maybe along the southern boundary of the 1 inch zone. And then the rainfall that you see for southern New England back through New Jersey, New York City, and points south and west, this is going to be more convective in nature, so there'll be more variability. I think we could safely take the idea of saying a 1 to 2 inch rainfall with locally higher amounts for the southern areas as a fairly good bet, and we can say 2 to 4, 2 to 5, some locally higher amounts in the area that's closer to or just north of the track of Florence. So I am coming back now to the board with you guys. It's an interesting week last week, folks, because I doing 3 live streams a day was tough. So I'm hoping to catch a little bit of a breather. Nice crowd here. The weather in Ireland, Veronica Reese says, has been strange since Ophelia. How so? I'd be curious to know what your perspective is. Being there, you can share with us, please. Good to, let's see, I just want to see, I guess Anthony Orr, our resident statistician and moderator, so behave yourselves because Anthony's watching. Stat from Colorado State University, on average, the Atlantic hurricane season has 5 named storms, 3 hurricanes, and 1 major hurricane after September 17th. So the season is not done. I'm thinking we're going to see a few more here. There's enough on the models for me to suggest that we still are not done with the tropics, not by a long shot. And remember, Sandy didn't happen until the end of October, be it that was a very active year, but nonetheless, that was at the end of October that we saw it. So we do still have quite a ways to go yet. Been hot in Ireland and in England. They had a very hot summer there, yes, and that did play out quite a bit. Perhaps some of the residual part of that pattern is attempting to hang on a little bit. Yeah, I can understand what you mean by the strangest of it. It was hot and dry with regards to the pattern that set up for much of the summer in Europe. In Western Europe in particular. All right, folks, just a quick shameless self-promotion. I just want to let you know that I do have a platform on Patreon. It is my websites, it is my videos, it is exclusive posts just for Patreon members. It is a great way to support what I'm doing. There are several tiers of membership. It's just $2 a month, and that's all it is. And it's a great, easy way to support my channel and what I'm doing. And I'm doing, as I said, some exclusive posts and videos just for Patreon members. This morning I did a video just for Patreon members. And so if you're interested, the link is on the descriptor to this video, and I will put up a link in the chat box so you can take a look at what's available. And I kind of leave it up to you. I put in a minimum of $2 in there. If you're feeling generous and you would like to give more to set it up to a higher tier, thank you very much for doing that. I really, really appreciate it. So here's the link. The link is going up now to the Patreon page. You still have to pay damages for your pool from Sandy, Shelly Man Studios. Hey, you know what? There's a lot of spots on Long Island and New Jersey. They're still, after 6 years, still not finished with building it back with their homes. It's been a real struggle. I'm just trying to get Israel. Maybe some thunderstorms for Lakewood, New Jersey tomorrow. You probably might have had one late this afternoon with what went through. I know it's north and west of you in Somerset County, but there was a severe thunderstorm that went through there around 5 o'clock this evening. Yeah, there might be, and there might be some severe weather with the remnant low going by. We're going to be in a warm sector in a tropical air mass. I wouldn't be surprised to see a few things spin up. Philip Neary, oh, nice to see you yesterday. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, getting me cigars. Thank you so much. You're very, very kind. By the way, Philip just reminded me, I did a library talk yesterday at the Deer Park Library in Deer Park, New York. It went very well. It went overtime. Everybody. We had a packed room. Everybody seemed to enjoy it. We talked about Florence. We talked about Helene. We talked about the tropics. We even talked a little bit about winter weather. And we looked also at the 38 hurricane. The 80th anniversary of the Great New England Hurricane of 1938 is coming up, and that impacted my neck of the woods in a big way. It was wonderful. I did live stream it to my Patreon members, and so they got to see it. Had a little bit of technical difficulty, but they did get to see it nonetheless. And that now is available in the YouTube in my video library. So just take a look under instructional videos. It's a little long. It's an hour and 33 minutes. We covered a lot of subject matter. But if weather is your thing, you might like it. So take a look at it. It's in the video library on my YouTube channel. If you're in the Long Island, New York, Westchester, New Jersey area, and you'd like to see me come to your local library, let your local library know that I'm available and to get in touch with me. My next library talk is going to be on Tuesday, October 9th on Long Island. It'll be at the Bayport Blue Point Library, and I'll be putting up stuff about it between now and then. We have plenty of time, but for the first time on Wednesday, October 17th, I will be in Springfield, New Jersey at the Springfield Library. So if you're in New Jersey, this is your shot to come out and see me, because this is the first time I've been going to be out there for one of my library talks. And it's kind of hard for me to get there because of where I live and where I work. But I singled out a day months in advance, and it's going to work. So by all means, come out if you are in New Jersey, and let your library know that I'm available if you want me to come out in your neck of the woods to give a library talk. Veronica Reese from Zachary Karenchak, my friend from Galway, said Pennsylvania and Ireland switch weather since it rained here a lot. It does seem that way. Thanks, Sean. Calendar mark for October 17th. That's good to hear. Jason Schaefer points out the problems with the recovery from Sandy is he's on, where he lives near the shore. His whole neighborhood is full of homes being raised up to FEMA and insurance company mandates, and they have to be. One of the things that I spoke about over the weekend with respect to some folks that had stayed on the Outer Banks and had Skyped onto a network newscast that I happened to be watching, something that I hadn't even thought about. They were trapped out there. The water was underneath their first floor. They were confined to the second floor. No electricity. The nights with no electricity means you have no light. It's pitch black out there. I've been to the Outer Banks. At night, it gets really dark. And you've got that going on, a hurricane raging nonstop, and they described laying in bed at night not being able to sleep because they were on the second floor. The whole first floor is covered with water, filled with water, and wondering whether they were going to their bedroom was going to collapse, their second floor was going to collapse down into the first floor. I mean, it never, that whole concept sounds like something you would write in a script in a way for a movie, but that was reality at play. Philip, you got to sit next to Angry Ben. Yeah, he did come out yesterday. I threw him a curveball. He wasn't expecting on talking there at the end, but it was fun. I had a really great time, and it was a great meeting you, by the way. Johnny Quest. Half the roads where you are in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Western Virginia closed due to water, and no idea when the ground will dry out. Well, at least after tomorrow, the weather does calm down a bit. And it looks like the front at the end of the week, by the way, is going to be a bit weaker and may have some weather with it, but not a whole lot. Israel, let your Lakewood library know. They could just find my Facebook page and contact me that way. My email is listed on there. It's listed here on the YouTube channel. So just let them know to contact me, and they usually they usually tend to find me. Angry Ben and his creepy bunnies. This guy, yes, right, he did, and he'll probably do it again. That actually, I kind of enjoyed it. Those were weird and fun at the same way. Pool days are over, William Huber. Nice to see you. It was good to see you on Sunday, and I think it's time to close it up. The season is over, okay? We're going to get these shots of cool air. The nights are too long, so unless you have a heater, it's going to be awfully hard to keep it warm. 99 Wolves. It must have been a nightmare out there on the Outer Banks. What's OBX between? See, OBX is Outer Banks. I mean, that's what it stands for. OBX. They came up with that three-letter moniker to represent all of the Outer Banks of North Carolina. It took me a little while to figure it out when I first saw it. I'm a little behind the curve sometimes when it comes to the short code that most people use on text, but I have been playing some catch-up. Supisaurus Rex. I'm a kid in Maryland, and my mom said that the hurricane is one state away. Will the hurricane hit? Supisaurus Rex. No, you are getting some thunderstorms that are moving through and some rains. I'm not sure if you're in Western Maryland or in Eastern Maryland, but the hurricane itself has weakened, and it's kind of changed over into a non-tropical type of storm, which in some ways is easier to manage. But the problem is that a lot of areas have gotten a lot of rain, so it doesn't take much to cause flooding. And it doesn't stop from strong or severe thunderstorms from developing, which is something that you might be at risk at this evening, and again maybe for tomorrow as well. But good question, and thank you for being on for watching my YouTube channel. I really appreciate it, and say hi to your mom. When will cooler weather, Zachary Karanchik, come? Well, we're going to get some of it coming in for Wednesday and Thursday, and then maybe an even cooler shot coming in for the weekend and into early next week. As you know, as I described with what's going on in Canada, even though we're going to have a bit of a ridge here in the east, it's kind of on the flat side. The movement from west to east of the fast flow across Canada is going to keep us fairly close to some cooler Canadian air masses, and they are going to be able to extend their way southward into the northeast and maybe even into the northern mid-Atlantic states. The first really solid push, though, is going to have to wait until we get some kind of deep trough in the eastern part of the United States. So that might be a little bit, we may have to wait a little longer for that. But I think the weather for the next couple of weeks is basically going to settle in typical mid to late September weather, probably about average, which will definitely be cooler and definitely less humid than what we've been experiencing. Okay, time now to say goodnight because I'm getting hungry and I got some TV to do at the top of the hour. So, once again, thank you very much for being here. Covered a lot of corners tonight with Florence and the tropics and the long-range weather and the weather across Europe and Ireland and England. Thanks, those of you who are watching from there. Appreciate you being here. As you know, again, if you're interested, you can join my Patreon page. It's just $2 a month, which is a small, very little. You get a lot. And you get all my websites with no ads. There's an app that goes with it. There's also videos that I'm cutting straight for Patreon and a whole bunch of other things. So check it out if you're interested. Again, the tier starts at about $2 a month. Also, another way you can support my channel is through Amazon. If you shop on Amazon, you can link via the link is on the descriptor to this video, or if you're watching this on the replay later on, it's on there. So just check it out. I'll just put that on the chat as well. If you shop on Amazon for whatever you get, you use the search button, and Amazon throws me back a little bit of coin, a percentage of whatever you purchase. It doesn't come out of your pocket. It comes out of theirs. We're an affiliate. We are a participant in the Amazon Services LLC program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for us to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com and affiliated sites. And all these little things, by the way, do really help me out. They help me pay some bills with regards to my 3 websites and everything else I'm doing. It gets me a couple of cigars and a cup of coffee, and I'm a very happy man. Eventually, what I would like to do is just expand through all of this, just doing this full time. But I got to be able to eat. So this is how I'm trying to do it. So thanks again for your support. I really, really appreciate it. The Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight at 9:15 on Facebook. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee is my Facebook page, so you can check that out if you're on Facebook. Otherwise, I'll try and upload it to the video library, and you can watch it here on YouTube in replay form later this evening, and of course also on Patreon. Have a great evening, everybody, and hopefully you'll all have a good week ahead. We will see you tomorrow.